18 minutes past 7. Now, as he came to office, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, promised to pass the Hillsborough Law, an act that would force public bodies to cooperate with inquiries.
The original deadline of April the 15th last year, the 36th anniversary of the disaster, was missed, with the legislation still not in place.
Well, campaigners have long called for the change, which is intended to enforce a legal duty of candour on public officials and authorities in future inquiries.
It's hoped that this will ensure honesty and transparency from public bodies in investigations following tragedies such as Hillsborough. The law is supposed to give scope for criminal sanctions for any official or authority that misleads or obstructs an investigation.
But the Hillsborough Law bill was withdrawn from the Commons in January amid concerns around how the security services would be compelled to disclose information. The government says it remains in negotiations about the bill.
Well, in September, Sir Keir Starmer was introduced to the Labour Party conference by Margaret Aspinall, whose 18-year-old son, James, was one of the victims of the disaster. We're going to speak to Margaret in just a moment, alongside campaigner Charlotte Hennessy, whose dad, 29-year-old James, was also killed. First, here's what the Prime Minister said to Margaret about the law.
With this Hillsborough Law, you and the other families, some of them are with us this afternoon, and other campaigners have served a degree of justice for James, for the 97, but also for thousands of people that you will never know and you will never meet, who will never now have to go through what you went through. Thank you. I know we can never undo the pain for you and all the other families, but we can show that in the Britain that we are building, the state will see, the state will listen, the state will be accountable to working people, because now injustice has no place to hide.
The Prime Minister there. Well, Margaret Aspinall and Charlotte Hennessy join us now. Morning, both.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you this morning. Margaret, just listening to the words of the Prime Minister and what he said back then, and in all your conversations with him, I know there have been many, I just wonder what it's like for you this morning to come in here and it's still not done.
Well, it's really frustrating, really, to be honest with you, because obviously, as everybody knows, the Prime Minister, I'm not going to call the Prime Minister, you know, because I think he wants to do his best to get this Hillsborough Law through. But there's other things behind the scenes that are stopping it. And what we always get told is about national security. Now, obviously, people like us, we would never do anything that would affect the people of this country and national security. Let's get that straight for a start. But national security has nothing to do with what we want. You know, nothing at all to do with the Hillsborough Law. When I first met the Prime Minister, he was the leader of the opposition at that time. And I asked him then to make me a promise if he ever became Prime Minister that he would present a Hillsborough Law for the good of the nation. He made that commitment then. He made that commitment since at the Labour conference in Liverpool. He made that commitment in private phone call to me as well. Then he made a commitment to Charlotte in Parliament, and he's made it really to the people of the country. You know, and that is it. And all I'm asking the Prime Minister is, please, do the right thing. Keep your promise. Show the people of the country that you are a man of your word. We will have a Hillsborough Law in all its entirety. That's all we're asking for. It's not for the Hillsborough families. That people get confused when they think Hillsborough again. What is it now? This is for the good of the ordinary people of this country, that they would never have to go through what we've gone through.
And Charlotte, we should remind people here what it is you're asking to change. What is this all about?
So the Public Office Accountability Bill will give a legal duty of candour to public officials and public servants, if you like. So I think, you know, look at what's been uncovered at the Nottingham inquiry. That's about 37 years ago. That's now, that's today. You know, police trying to conceal their failings. We had family members that were told that one of their loved ones had died in a car accident whilst the son was being told, you know, something completely different. And the whole time that poor man was there at the scene for 15 hours. Lots of, you know, there's multiple failings, not just by police, but in my opinion, you know, through medical professionals as well. So in this instance, if we were to take the Nottingham Inquiry as an example, those professionals would be held to account for that. And I think, you know, it's high time that we stopped allowing these cover-ups and we stopped allowing people in power to abuse their positions, you know, even just by, you know, campaigning for this Public Office Accountability Bill. We've seen it ourselves, you know, we're in the room with people that are actively abusing their position of power, and we're calling it out and saying, you know, you can't do that. So it'll also ensure legal aid and, you know, sort of like a parity of arms. You know, obviously, I was too young at the time, but, you know, Margaret and other family members have told me over the years how they've had to use their savings, how they had to fundraise, you know, to be able to fund private prosecutions and things. And if they hadn't have done those things, I would never, there's lots of children that were like me that would never have got the answers that they did in the end. And we shouldn't have to be relying on bereaved parents to uncover cover-ups by professionals that are there to protect and serve.
And the issue with it now, the delay now, is over the scope of the people who it applies to. Is that right? So there is a suggestion that, well, that people, say, in the security services, this should not apply to them. Is that... So if it doesn't go through in the way that you want it to go through, would you regard it as a weaker law?
It won't be a Hillsborough law.
It won't be a Hillsborough law then, would it? We want a full Hillsborough law.
Yeah.
You know, and I really do not understand why national security is getting brought into this, to be honest with you. You can make exceptions, you know, and I did say to the Prime Minister, there's exceptions you can make for national security. We're not in a war. Anything like that. And what has national security had to do with maybe where were the national security when the arena tragedy happened, when a guy was allowed to walk around with a rucksack on his back that they knew about? Where was national security then? You know, so my answer to all of this is national security does not come into the cover-ups of the likes of Grenfell, Hillsborough, contaminated blood, nuclear test victims. There's so many families that are going through and had cover-ups. And we must always remember, cover-ups haven't only started since Hillsborough, which we found out there was a massive cover-up. It's been going on for decades. Enough is enough. You know, if you go back over the years and you look at it, even I'll go back as far as Jimmy Savile. You know, they were all cover-ups. You know, and it's got to stop. We've got to change things for people. And I'm tired now. You know, I'm really old. I was only a young woman when Hillsborough happened. You know, I've seen grandchildren now at 20-odd years of age that I didn't see. I haven't watched them growing up. We've been campaigning families for all of them years. Why should we have to do that? We don't want any other family ever having to do this. Parity of arms is very important for people as well.
I think that, you know, just touching on what Margaret was saying there about the other campaign groups as well, there's nothing that Margaret and I will ever be able to do that will change the outcomes for them. We're never going to be able to secure prosecutions, you know, especially not for Hillsborough. That ship sailed now. But I think, you know, one thing that we've always agreed on is that we never want anybody to ever experience what we've endured. You know, like, again, Margaret's experience is very different to mine. I cannot tell you how traumatic it is to find out 23 years later that what happened to your dad is actually not the truth. And, you know, to have believed this narrative for so long, to then have to process that all what you were told and all that paperwork that you had was a lie. So it is about, you know, protecting other people, making sure that there is those things in place to stop this from happening, you know, whether that's Margaret's grandchildren and my own children.
Margaret, Charlotte, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
OK, thank you. Thank you.